And so it begins, the transformation to a house, and not the work site. I mean, I suppose that started like a year ago, but now it's really starting. Today we're doing the cladding, or starting to do the cladding, or whatever. Today we're doing the cladding! Okay, so here's the drill. This is our wall cladding. It is similar to a 1,000-piece puzzle. Every single decision that we've made in regards to the cladding has been to do with the weight of the van. So we're trying to not to double up any walls. We're trying to use a single wall for 2, 3, 4 purposes if needed, which somewhat complicates that piece of wall because you have to visualize all of these functions and what they'll need from that single piece of wall per wall before you even cut. That's why it all looks like this. Our wall cladding is a mixture of 3mm poplar ply. So it's been primed and painted with multiple coats, and we took great care to stop it warping all over the place. Because if you've ever tried to paint thin ply, if you paint only one side, it acts exactly like paper. It's gonna bubble up in that direction, and because it's so thin, you may get some sort of bouncy, bubbly areas on your wall. Now that's the downside to using this very, very thin ply. Actually, the small piece is fine. The bigger pieces is where you see the most sort of issues with that. But essentially we have 3mm poplar ply, and that's the majority of the bigger pieces of the wall. And then we have these decorative / semi-functional strips which are gonna go on the wall, and you'll see that a bit later because I'm not going to waste time explaining it now. I'm just going to confuse you. And those strips are going to go with this fabric. We have this sort of creamy white fabric and this really nice denim-y blue fabric.
Now, because we're using such thin ply for our walls, we've had to modify our wall framing a little bit to accommodate it, because the 3mm ply needs a perimeter all the way around in order to make it at least semi-sturdy. So all this extra framing here is where the ply is going to attach to as per its perimeter for our design. And because there were no mounting holes behind, we've had to use L brackets and attach it to the already existing framing and just rearranged it a little bit, but it seems to have held pretty well. I think it's even sturdier than some of these ones here. Look, that's screwed into the wall, and this one is L bracketed into the other framing. Now, I'm sure some of you are still banging your head against the wall and completely at a loss of why we're using this for our walls. And the answer to that is the weight. So we did a giant Excel table, and what we calculated is that if we clad our walls in 9mm hardwood ply, which is a good idea because it's sturdy and you can actually mount things to it, if we were to clad the whole van in 9mm ply, it would have been 133 kilograms. That's in ply cladding alone, not including this framing that you see here. When the van was empty, we had about 850 kilos to work with by the time we minused us off. So that would have been like 1/7 of our total weight just in the walls. Now, if we were to use the standard 6mm ply that came with the van, that would have been 90 kilos. And if we were to use hardwood 3mm ply, it still would have been 55 kilos for the walls and the ceiling. Meanwhile, this poplar 3mm ply only weighs 28 kilos to clad the whole walls and the ceiling. And then when we add our framing, which we've estimated is about 20 kilos, our system with the 3mm ply and the framing comes to just under 50 kilos. And the framing is not just here to support the wall, it's also so we can mount other things to it. So we can actually use this framing to mount our things to the framing, not just to the wall. And also, more importantly, is to create an air gap for our reflectix. So we will need this framing regardless of whether we use 3mm, 6mm, 9mm, 12mm ply for our walls, whatever. We're going to try the 3mm ply. If it doesn't work, we'll use something else. And if you find anything that's 1 kilogram per meter squared that you think is stronger than this stuff, please let us know. We've been racking our brains for 6 months trying to find something, and we couldn't. That was cheap. This was the cheapest option.
Addressing the weight issue here is really, really important, because so many people, including us, we were like, okay, we bought the van and then suddenly we have this weight limit to work with that we never considered before. So all of these wacky cool ideas that we had were like suddenly sort of throttled. And actually the walls are really deceiving as to how much weight they can take, because when you get the van, you strip it and you see the open cavities. Then you stuff those cavities with insulation. Then most of us put some sort of framing on, and then you put the cladding on top. And when you're done, the van doesn't look that much different than when you started, because you still have the open space. And then you've just changed the look of the walls. If you had just taken the cladding and stuck it on the walls without insulating or framing first, it will look about the same. But instead, when doing all the functional insulating stuff, you've added like 200 kilos without even realizing it, and you suddenly have only like, what, 500 kilos to work with to build your entire house. And that might seem like a big number, but it's not. As soon as you add the water and the batteries and all the functional stuff, you literally have to just stay on the floor and have no furniture. So I guess what I'm trying to get at is that the weight issue is a big issue, and I feel like not enough people talk about it. The heavier your van is, the sooner you have to replace the brake pads and your suspension. So the fuel's going to cost more money, repairs are going to cost more money. So really getting the weight right whilst you're building is kind of important, and it has been a huge stress ball for us for a year. Yeah. Okay, we've probably rambled enough. Let's just put the cladding on and see what it's going to look like and show you what our crazies are doing. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to start with the fabric. So we have measured out the little chunks of fabric that we're going to dot around the van, and we're about to cut them. So the idea is we put the fabric on first, and then we put the cladding, the ply itself, on top of that, and that creates a neater seam. Wondering how many screws will this gigantic wall take to screw in?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 times 4, that's 56.
So that's around
That's 102.
How many screws do we have left?
Of that size.
Of the 16s, yeah.
Well, this is the box we bought the other day. Maybe half full? We probably have 100 in that box.
So, are you telling me that yesterday, when I said, do we need more screws? And you said, like, nah, we have enough.
And then you edged us away from the screw aisle.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need 4 more boxes of those screws, probably.
4?
4 more.
All I've been buying this past year is screws.
And L brackets.
And L brackets. No, mainly screws. It's been mainly screws.
We always need more screws. Always.
You think I eat them? I'm getting worried about the weight of the van from screws.
Let's screw in that wall.
Okay.
And hope we have enough, and then go and get more screws. Because I want to see a wall in the van. I want to see a wall.
See how desperate we are? Sam's crying.
All right.
Oh, my back hurts.
Come.
Oh, I feel old. Oh, the van build's aging me. is on, and as you can see, there's a whole packet of screws on it. And honestly, I'm good with it. It's not bouncing, it's not bending. This is where the backrest is going to be, so that's where there's an abundance of screws here. So when you obviously lean back and you sit down.
Yeah, because our sofa's here.
Yeah, we're going to be a bit lower. Now this part, the slats that we can't really explain other than doing it. So the idea about the slats is to pop them like that. So they're just a sort of a cool style thing, because we thought, hey, well, why have just a flat wall? So don't fall. Right. Okay, so they're going to be 2 centimeters apart, and you're going to see the color of the fabric. It's going to be something like this, like that. Then you have another one on top here, and then essentially you can hook light things on them, or like I was thinking, having some light plants, or just hooking some ivy, or not real ivy, just some greenery or something like that, or some decoration, and then basically this can act as an easy way to mount stuff, especially like, let's say, Christmas, like tinsel or whatever, and it just breaks up the flat wall, and we just liked it, so we're doing it. Yeah, so that's the verdict. Let's do it.
Okay, we're in.
Fine. Let it hang.
All in. Next.
Excellent. How can so many screws fit into that one wall?
I have no
idea. I know how, mathematically speaking, but how? Okay, so progress update. Oh, we're lying on the floor.
You're lying on the floor.
I see. Are we pointing fingers now?
Yes.
Okay, so exhibit B is right here. This is the second biggest wall we have. Oh, okay. Obviously the screws are not going to be this visible. We're gonna, cover them up with some wood filler and paint, and none the wiser. We're not gonna care about it afterwards. Right now they just give me a migraine. They're really spotty. So that top piece is there, and we just finished doing the wheel arch piece. Oh, and we chucked some black fabric in this corner here. See this black hole probably to you, because this is under the bench here, so yeah, don't need a wall there. This is the office wall, and it's nearly done. We have this section to do, and we have the strips up there to do. Walls are hard, guys. Walls are hard. Well, actually, ours are quite bendy, but they're very time consuming. They take so long, and it's just the measuring and the screws, because we have to make sure that we hit the framing, because if we don't hit the framing, then they're not screwing in, are they? So. And I'm fumbling, come on. Okay, so I know this must look like a complete jigsaw puzzle to you, and it is. It took some figuring out. But because we're doing like 10 different tasks at the same time, we can sort of pre-plan where things are supposed to go and make special cuts. And something else that you see in the next video is we have made this wall push a little bit into this bracket here. So yeah, we'll explain that next video. But essentially, that's what this crazy shape is.
I'm going to go ahead and say, for the record, this is probably going to be the hardest piece. Because look at all that framing, And then look at the lack of framing now.
So we have no reference point. Okay, so all of the wall panels that we're planning to put are now up. So the kitchen, most of the office, though this section needs a bit more work. We have some corkboard ideas for that section, and the living room. Today was the day that we released our burnout video, so last week's video. So thank you so much for all of your nice comments. Yes, we will be taking it easy. So like right now we're just gonna sit down on our butts and fill all of the 400, 500 holes that we have to do. And yes, we agree, we're certainly going to restrict working outside the van as much as possible. We've cleaned out a room in the house where it's heated, so we've converted that into a temporary workshop, just so we can have somewhere else to do major things. But luckily, today should be the last day of the cold front. So by the time that you see this video, we should have had like 10, 12 degrees on the horizon, which... finally. Anyway, thank you so much. Let's get back to the walls and gonna show you what we're doing here. So this is what a panel looks like right now. It kind of looks like drywall, you know. You can see all the screws and stuff. So the plan is to hide these by filling them as much as possible. We did do an experiment right here on this panel. What happens if we were to just paint a panel without filling the screws? How visible are they gonna be? And as you can see, they're still very much distinct. You can see them, they're there. They're no longer, you know, a different color, but they're there. So, you know, how much you like this look, it's up to your personal preference, but we would fancy a bit of a flatter wall this time. So here, right now with this panel, we started testing the wood filler. I've even sanded this one a little bit. And obviously we're gonna do another coat of paint once they're all filled, like that. But it already looks much better, and in certain lights you can't even tell, which is excellent. And in theory we're just going to be filling them with wood filler, so if we do need to unscrew the walls for whatever reason, we could technically do it, like break through the paint and the wood filler and unscrew them. But hopefully we shouldn't have to. Yeah, so alright, let's get cracking.
Alrighty, our walls are done. They're painted. The screw holes are definitely not as much of a thorn in our eye as they were before. They're a little bit visible, but with more coats of paint, that will be fine. And we are going to paint it again once this is not a work site, because chances are there'll be fingerprints on this within a week. I really love how the strips have actually worked out. I mean, without the ceiling on, it's a bit hard because you can still see the seam up here. But if you look here, imagine the ceiling there, that's how it's going to look. The fabric behind the slats, and it just basically breaks up the flatness of the wall. And I think that turns out pretty good. Also goes with the van coming all the way down. Now the two areas we haven't covered here. So if I remove this, this is still visible. However, this is going to be where our backsplash is going to go. We'll do that in a later video, but we didn't want to put any cladding there for now. Now on this side you might see quite a gaping hole in our wall cladding, and that's because this area we haven't exactly finalized what's going to go here. We've got ideas of a corkboard, folding down desks, because this is where our hanging chair is going to go on this pole, but we decided it's best just to leave the framing exposed so that we can add more framing and we can see exactly where we want to tap into. But at the moment we're just going to leave it because there's not going to be a wall here, or all of here. I'm still unsure. I don't know. Come around to the living room. So this here is going to be our living room. The couch is going to come up just past where the screws are visible. That's why we didn't fill and paint them. There's no point. The couch will come up to roughly here. And this is our backrest for the couch. Again, we've continued the slats, but this time we put blue fabric. And then again, this top area is going to be a cupboard. So we decided to leave it for now until we know exactly where the cupboard's going. And also, we're still unsure, do we want black fabric or blue fabric in the cupboard? Because the headliner shelf is black, but this is blue. And I don't know. This is roughly the height of our couch.
Very comfortable.
Now, in areas where we didn't want to use the ply, we used our black stretch fabric instead. So, for example, this is under the kitchen counter. We're going to have a shelf here, so this is going to be visible from the outside. However, down here is going to be like cupboards and storage and stuff. We didn't need ply behind it, so we just stuck black fabric to the framing. Here, here, and so on. And this is strong enough, and it also makes the walls a bit more breathable because this fabric will allow airflow going in and out of the walls. And that's also another reason why we went with fabric up at the top, because this is also breathable since there's fabric behind it, so you get airflow at the top and at the bottom. Yeah. And then we did the same on the other side because there's going to be an entire back bench here coming to roughly this height, somewhere like there, and out to here. So you can actually see the imprint of our furniture with the fabric, and in a future video we'll explain, but with the floor as well. Oh, and if you come up here, you'll see a couple more Easter eggs and imprints of something, which will be a surprise for next week's video. So thank you for joining us today. Hope you enjoyed, and we'll catch you next week.